The marketplace of Girath Station was full of life, colors, and noise. Merchants shouted, calling buyers to their stalls. Children of different alien races laughed as they ran through the crowd. Music played from hidden speakers, and the smell of roasted food filled the air. In the middle of all this joy, one figure stood quietly, almost invisible. She was young, only 22 in her years, tall and slender, with silver-blue skin that shimmered faintly under the artificial lights. Her long black hair fell across her shoulders, hiding part of her face. Her golden eyes did not shine with happiness like others. Instead, they watched the laughter of others, the games of children, the hugs of families. Her name was Liara. She stood at the edge of the plaza, her hands folded in front of her, as if she did not belong here. She was not part of the crowd, not part of the laughter. She was only a watcher. Some of the children pointed at her once, whispering, but no one came near. She was used to this. Every day she came here, and every day she stood in the same place, silently watching. To others she was strange, unwanted, a shadow that should be ignored. Liara's people were known to be proud, but her own clan had fallen years ago. She carried a mark on her arm, one that made others stay away. It was a symbol of shame, though she had done nothing to deserve it. Her father had been accused of betrayal, and the punishment fell on his whole family. Now, even though she had grown into an adult, the whispers followed her everywhere. She felt it again today. The stares, the avoidance, the sharp edge of silence whenever she came near. It cut her heart slowly, but she did not let it show. She had learned to keep her face calm, her voice quiet, her feelings hidden. But deep inside, loneliness was heavy, and loneliness had teeth. She wished, just once, that someone would smile at her, not with pity, not with cruelty, but with simple kindness. The sounds of laughter around her grew louder. A group of alien girls, about her age, were tossing a glowing orb back and forth. The orb sparkled in the air, leaving trails of light as they played. Their laughter echoed through the plaza, and Liara's chest tightened. She wanted to join, but she knew the answer. If she stepped closer, they would stop, stare, and whisper, and the game would end for her before it even began. So she stood, still, watching, always watching. And then, in the middle of this endless routine, something unexpected happened. A shadow fell across her, not threatening but curious. She turned her head slightly and saw a man, different from everyone else. Was human. Humans were rare here. Not many traveled so far into alien territory. Yet here he was, standing only a few feet away, holding a small bag of food in one hand. He looked ordinary. Brown hair, tired eyes, simple clothes. But something about him was different. He was not rushing, not shouting, not ignoring. He was watching her, the way she had always watched others. For the first time in a long time, Liara felt unsettled. Not by hate, but by attention. Real attention. The human did not speak at first. He only tilted his head, as if wondering why she stood alone. Then he looked at the alien girls playing, with the glowing orb, and then back at her. His brow furrowed slightly, as if he understood more than he should. Liara quickly turned her eyes away, heat rising in her chest. She was afraid. Afraid that he would laugh. Afraid that he would say something cruel. Afraid that this was another moment to remind her she was different, but he did not. Instead, the human stepped a little closer. His footsteps were calm, steady, easy to hear even in the noisy plaza. For a second, Liara thought about walking away. She wanted to run, hide, disappear into the crowd. But something froze her feet. Some part of her heart whispered, "Don't move." The human stopped a few steps from her. His voice, when it came, was soft, almost careful. "Why do you stand here alone?" he asked. The words were simple, but they cut deeper than she expected. No one had asked her that before. Not in years. Everyone else already thought they knew the answer. Liara blinked, her lips parting slightly, but no sound came out. She had forgotten how to reply to such a question. The human waited, not impatient, not judging, just waiting. and in that silent pause, something dangerous and fragile began to stir inside her. Hope. It was the first time in years that anyone had spoken to her like that, not as an outcast, not as a shadow, not as a shameful mark, but as a person. Her heart pounded in her chest. Her golden eyes flickered toward him, and she whispered her first uncertain words. "I watch." The human tilted his head again, studying her face with curiosity. His eyes did not hold disgust or fear, only quiet interest. And in that moment, Liara realized her world might change. For the first time, the watcher was being seen. Liara's voice was soft, almost like the wind brushing against glass. "I watch," she had said. The human blinked, surprised by her answer, but he did not laugh. He did not turn away. Instead, he looked around at the crowded plaza, at the games, at the merchants shouting, at the laughter, and then back at her. "Only watch?" he asked gently. His tone was not sharp, not mocking. It was the kind of voice someone used when they truly wanted to understand. Liara shifted uncomfortably. Her golden eyes flickered toward the group of alien girls who still tossed their glowing orb in the air. Their laughter rose again, sharp in her ears, reminding her of what she could never have. "Yes?" she whispered, her hands folded tighter in front of her. "That is all I do." The human studied her for a moment longer. Then, slowly, he smiled. It was a small smile, nothing grand, but it felt strange and powerful. "My name is Daniel," he said, placing his bag of food under his arm so he could hold out his hand. "And you are?" Liara's chest tightened. A human, an off-worlder, was offering his hand to her. It was such a simple gesture, but it shook her heart. No one here ever did that. Her fingers trembled. She hesitated. But then, almost against her own will, she reached out and touched his hand. Her skin was cooler than his, but warm compared to the cold stares she usually received. "Liara," she said at last, her voice carrying her name into the open air. Daniel's smile widened. "Liara," he repeated, as if testing the sound of it. "That's a strong name." Her throat tightened strong. No one had ever said that before. Her name was usually spoken with whispers, with disdain, with suspicion. Yet he said it like it mattered. For a moment, she felt unsteady, as if the world around her was shifting. A loud shout broke through the air nearby. Two alien boys ran past, nearly bumping into her. They looked at her and then at Daniel, smirked and whispered something cruel in their own tongue before vanishing into the crowd. Liara lowered her gaze, shame pressing into her chest. Daniel noticed. He frowned slightly. "They do that often?" he asked. Liara did not answer. Her silence was enough. Instead of pressing further, Daniel reached into his bag, pulled out a small packet, and held it out to her. Inside was a round earth snack, simple bread with sweet filling. "Hungry?" he asked. Her eyes widened. She hadn't eaten anything sweet in years. Such things were expensive here, and she had no credits to waste. She shook her head quickly. I cannot." "You can," Daniel said firmly. "Take it, I have more." Liara hesitated. Her pride screamed to refuse, but her body betrayed her. Her fingers moved forward slowly. Brushing against the packet, he placed it into her hand without hesitation. She stared at it, her golden eyes shining faintly. Her lips parted as she whispered, "Why?" Daniel tilted his head. "Because you looked like you needed it." The words hit her harder than she expected. Simple, direct, but filled with a kindness she had forgotten existed. For the first time, Liara's lips trembled into the shadow of a smile. It was tiny, uncertain, but it was there. Daniel noticed. His eyes softened. He didn't say anything. He just let the silence carry the weight of the moment. Liara lowered her gaze, staring at the bread in her hand. Her chest was tight. But for once it was not from pain, it was something else, something lighter. "Do humans always give food to strangers?" she asked softly. Daniel chuckled. "Not always, but sometimes, yes. When we see someone who needs it." Liara looked up again, confusion mixing with something like hope. No one in her world did that. Not for her, not for someone marked with shame. The plaza around them still roared with noise, with laughter, with life. But for Liara, everything had quieted. All she could hear was his calm voice. All she could feel was the weight of the snack in her hand. "Maybe," Daniel said after a pause. "You don't have to only watch anymore." The words echoed in her mind. "You don't have to only watch." Her breath caught. Could it be possible? Could she step into the laughter, into the games, into something more than just shadows? But before she could answer, a sharp voice cut through the plaza. It was one of the alien girls from the game. She had noticed Liara standing with Daniel. Her eyes narrowed with disdain. "Why is he talking to her?" The girl hissed to her friends, loud enough for Liara to hear. Liara flinched, her hands tightening around the packet of food. Shame threatened to drown her again. The familiar pain of rejection rose in her chest. But then, Daniel spoke. His voice was calm, but strong. Because she deserves to be spoken to, the group of girls froze, their eyes widening in surprise. No one had ever defended Liara before. The girls scoffed, muttered something, and turned away. Liara's heart raced. Her golden eyes snapped to Daniel. For the first time in years, someone had stood beside her, not against her. She did not know it yet, but this was the first step, the first word that would change everything. She whispered so quietly that even the noise of the crowd nearly swallowed it. "Thank you." Daniel smiled again, and this time, it was brighter. "Any time," he said, and for the first time Liara felt the faintest spark of something she had lost long ago: belonging. Liara held the small bread in her hands as if it were something fragile. She had not taken a bite yet, but the warmth of the gift was enough to shake her heart. Daniel stood nearby, watching the crowd, calm and steady. For the first time, Liara felt the weight of silence change. Usually, silence meant loneliness. Now, silence felt safe. "Do you always stand here?" Daniel asked, his voice breaking the quiet gently. Liara lowered her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "Every day." Daniel nodded slowly. "Why?" The question was simple, but it cut deeper than he knew. Her chest tightened, her lips moved, but no words came out. To answer meant opening a door she had kept locked for years, a door filled with pain. She looked at him. His eyes were steady, patient, not demanding. He waited, giving her time. That patience itself was dangerous. It made her want to speak at last. She said softly, "Because no one wants me anywhere else." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" Her golden eyes flickered with shame. She raised her arm slightly, pulling back her sleeve. On her skin glowed a faint mark, burned into her flesh years ago. It was an ancient symbol, curved and sharp, glowing faint red. "This," she whispered, "is my burden." Daniel stared at the mark, his brow furrowed. "What is it?" "It is the sign of a traitor," Liara said, her voice breaking. "My father was accused of betraying our clan. They punished him, and me, and my mother. We were marked forever." Her hand trembled as she lowered her sleeve. "He vanished soon after my mother. She did not survive the shame." Her voice grew weaker with each word, and by the end she could barely breathe. The noise of the plaza seemed far away, like an echo in a dream. Daniel's face tightened. He did not speak quickly this time. He looked at her with quiet intensity, letting her words sink in, letting her grief fill the air without interruption. Liara turned her face away. "That is why no one comes near me. Why they laugh, why they whisper. Even if I do nothing wrong, I carry his sin and I cannot wash it away." Her voice cracked. "I am only 22, but I have lived with this shadow all my life." She expected Daniel to step back, to look at her the same way others did, with pity or disgust. Her chest braced for the pain, but instead he stepped closer. His voice was low, firm. "You are not your father's crime." Liara froze. The words hit her like a storm. "No one has ever said that," she whispered, her eyes wide. "Then they were wrong," Daniel said. "A mark on your skin does not define who you are. It only defines how cruel your people have been to you." Her lips trembled, her heart. pounded in her chest. She wanted to believe him, but the weight of years pressed heavy. "But the mark cannot be erased," she said weakly. "It glows even when I sleep. It follows me always." Daniel's eyes softened. He reached into his bag again, this time pulling out a small device, nothing special. Just a handheld scanner he used for trade. He turned it on, the blue light washing over her hand. "Then let me tell you something," he said. "Machines read marks, people read faces. I see you, not the mark." The scanner beeped, useless, against the ancient symbol, but his words were not. They slipped past her defenses like light through cracks. Liara's breath shook, her golden eyes filled with something dangerous. Tears. She had not cried in front of anyone in years. Tears had always been punished, mocked, or ignored. But now they fell silently, sliding down her silver-blue skin. Daniel did not move to wipe them. He simply stood, strong and steady, letting her cry without shame. Around them, the plaza continued as normal, but in her world, everything had stopped, Liara whispered, almost too soft to hear. "I wish I could believe. You." "Then try," Daniel said firmly. "Believe me, if not them. Believe that you are more than this mark, more than this pain." Her tears kept falling, but her heart shifted. It was the first time someone had fought her shame with conviction. The first time someone had looked at her and not seen a curse. Slowly, she raised the bread again. Her hands trembled, but this time, she took a small bite. Sweetness filled her mouth, a taste she had forgotten. It was so simple, yet it felt like a miracle. Daniel smiled faintly, watching her eat. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Liara looked at him through watery eyes, her lips curving into the smallest smile. "This is the first time in years. That food tastes like food, not dust," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "That's how it should be." Her heart trembled with something she had not felt since childhood. A fragile warmth. She wiped her tears quickly, trying to hide them, but Daniel had already seen, and instead of mocking, he simply said, "You're stronger than you know, Liara." The words lingered in the air, burning brighter than her shame. For the first time, Liara felt like her story might not end in silence. Perhaps, just perhaps, it was only beginning. The marketplace lights dimmed slowly as the station moved into its evening cycle. The noise grew softer, merchants closed their stalls, and children ran home with tired laughter. But Liara and Daniel still stood near the fountain at the plaza's edge. Liara's eyes were red from tears, but her face felt lighter than before. She had told someone her truth, her deepest shame, and instead of turning away, Daniel had stayed. His presence felt like a shield against the cold stares of others. She held the half-eaten bread in her hand, staring at it as though it were more than food. To her, it was proof that kindness was still real. Daniel watched her quietly, his arms folded loosely. He was not the kind of man who filled silence with empty words. Instead, he waited until the moment felt natural. "You liked it," he said at last, nodding toward the bread. Liara blinked, caught off guard, then lowered her gaze. "It was sweet," she admitted softly. A faint warmth touched her lips, almost a smile. "I had forgotten what sweet tastes like." Daniel's lips curved. "Then you shouldn't forget again." He reached into his bag once more, rummaging around until he pulled out something small. It wasn't food this time. It was a tiny object wrapped in cloth. He held it out toward her. "Here." Liara's golden eyes widened, her hands stayed at her sides. "What is that?" "Just take it," Daniel said gently. "It's nothing dangerous." Hesitantly, she reached forward. Her fingers brushed the cloth, and then she pulled it back to herself. Slowly, she unwrapped it. Inside was a simple pendant, a round piece of metal on a thin chain. The metal was scratched, old, clearly worn by time but polished carefully. On one side was an engraving of a tree, its branches reaching wide, its roots deep. Liara stared, breath caught in her throat. "What? What is this?" Daniel's voice softened. "It's from Earth. It's called an oak tree. They live for hundreds of years through storms, fires, and even when the ground around them breaks, they still stand. I carried this with me for years. As a reminder, her hands trembled as she held the pendant. The metal was warm from his touch, but it felt heavier than its size. Heavy with meaning. "Why give this to me?" she whispered. Her voice was small, fragile. Daniel's eyes met hers, steady and kind. "Because I think you need it more than I do now." The words sank deep into her heart. Her breath shook, and she looked down at the pendant again. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the polished metal. For so long she had only seen herself as cursed, marked, unwanted. Now she saw something else. Something given with trust. Liara closed her fingers tightly around it as if afraid it might vanish, her golden eyes filled with unshed tears. No one has ever given me a gift." Daniel tilted his head. "Not even when you were a child?" She shook her head quickly, her black hair falling around her face. "Children did not share with me. Families turned away. Even my mother. After the mark, she could not look at me without sorrow." Her voice cracked. "I learned never to expect anything." Daniel let out a slow breath, his jaw tightened, but he kept his voice calm. "Then let this be your first." Liara clutched the pendant to her chest. The metal pressed against her skin, warm and solid. For the first time she felt like she was holding proof that she was not invisible. The crowd had thinned now, a few. Aliens walked past, their eyes landing briefly on the strange sight, a human standing beside the outcast girl. But Daniel didn't move away. He stood as if nothing about this moment was wrong. "Daniel," Liara whispered, tasting his name. Carefully, it felt strange but comforting on her tongue. Why are you doing this? Why me?" He looked at her for a long time, then shrugged lightly. "Maybe because I saw someone who looked like they needed a reason to smile." His eyes softened, and I wanted to see it. Her chest tightened, her lips parted, but no sound came. She had no words to answer kindness that pure. For years she had been treated as if she were less than nothing. But this human, who owed her nothing, stood here, giving her food, listening to her pain and now placing a gift in her hands. Her golden eyes shimmered with tears again. But this time, they were not only tears of sorrow. They were tears of something new, something dangerous, something powerful. Hope, the pendant. Chain slipped slightly and Daniel stepped closer, carefully placing it around her neck. His fingers brushed her skin lightly as he clasped it behind her. "There," he said softly. "Now it's yours." Liara's heart pounded so loud she thought he might hear it. She touched the pendant where it rested against her chest. Her lips trembled, and then, slowly, she smiled. It wasn't small this time. It wasn't broken or forced. It was soft, fragile, but real. Daniel's eyes warmed as he saw it. His lips curved, satisfied. "That's better." But in the shadows nearby, two alien merchants stood watching, their expressions dark. They whispered among themselves, their eyes flicking toward the human and the outcast girl. Their voices carried faintly. "This is not right. She carries the mark. And yet he treats her as honored." Liara didn't notice. Her world was too full of light in that moment, too full of the gift resting against her heart. But the whisper in the shadows promised trouble. Trouble that would test both her and the human who had given her a reason to smile. The pendant rested against Liara's chest, warm and steady. Each time she touched it, she felt as if a new strength pulsed inside her. Daniel had given her more than metal. He had given her dignity, a piece of hope she thought she would never feel again. But in the plaza, not everyone looked with kindness. The alien girls who had once mocked Liara now whispered angrily. Their eyes followed Daniel and Liara wherever they moved. The merchants who had seen the gift exchanged sharp glances. Jealousy and suspicion stirred like smoke in the air. Liara did not notice at first. She was too focused on the strange, fragile happiness blooming inside her. She had eaten something sweet, spoken her truth, and now carried a gift that felt like a promise. For the first time in years, her smile had returned, But Daniel noticed the stares. He saw the way the crowd shifted, the way whispers spread. He didn't like it. His instincts warned him that kindness often drew envy, and envy turned dangerous quickly. As they walked toward a quieter corner of the market, Liara spoke softly. "Do you know what this means to me?" She touched the pendant again, her golden eyes shimmering. "It feels like I am seen, not as a shadow, but as someone real." Daniel gave her a small smile. "That's because you are real, Liara. More real than the lies people believe about you." Her heart tightened. She wanted to believe every word, but then her ears caught the sound of mocking laughter behind her. She turned and saw 3 alien boys approaching, the same ones who had nearly knocked into her earlier. Their faces carried cruel smiles. "Well, look at this," one of them sneered, his voice loud enough to draw more attention. "The cursed girl has found herself a pet human." Liara froze. Her hands clenched tightly around the pendant, her stomach twisted with shame. She wanted to vanish, to melt into the ground. The old habit of silence returned. Say nothing. Show nothing. Hide until it ends. But Daniel stepped forward. His shoulders squared. His voice was calm, but it carried sharpness. "Is there a problem?" The boys laughed, circling slightly. "Problem? No problem, stranger." One said mockingly. "We just wonder why you waste your time with her. Don't you know who she is? She carries the mark. Her blood is dirty, her smile is poison." The words cut like blades. Liara's heart dropped. She could feel the crowd's eyes turning toward them. Some watched with curiosity, others with silent agreement. The weight of all those stares pressed down on her chest. But then Daniel did something no one expected. He laughed, not cruelly, but boldly. "Dirty blood?" he said, shaking his head. "I see someone stronger than any of you. She carries scars you couldn't survive. And she still stands here." The boys blinked, taken aback. No one had ever defended Liara in public, the crowd murmured, surprise spreading. Daniel's voice grew firmer. "You point at her mark, but marks don't make monsters. Hearts do. And right now I see 3 boys proving their hearts are rotten." The laughter around the plaza died into silence. The air grew heavy. Every word Daniel spoke carried weight, and people listened. Liara stared at him, her chest pounding. No one had ever spoken for her like this. No one had dared. She felt heat rush to her face, not from shame, but from something stronger. Pride. One of the boys snarled, his pride wounded. "You dare insult us, human?" He stepped closer, his hand reaching for the knife at his belt. Liara gasped, fear rising. Her instincts screamed danger, but Daniel did not flinch. He took a slow step forward, his eyes locked on the boy, calm but unyielding. "I've faced worse than knives," Daniel said evenly. His voice was low, dangerous in its certainty. "If you want to draw it, be ready to use it." The boy hesitated. His friends glanced at each other nervously. The human's confidence was unsettling. There was no fear in his eyes, only a warning. The knife stayed where it was. The boy spat on the ground instead. "This isn't over," he muttered, before pulling his friends back into the crowd. The tension broke. The plaza returned to its rhythm, but the whispers had changed. People no longer whispered only about Liara's shame. Now they whispered about the human who stood beside her. Liara's heart raced. She turned to Daniel, her voice trembling. "You shouldn't have done that. They'll come back. They'll hurt you." Daniel gave her a faint smile. "Then let them try. I don't care what they think, and neither should you." Her golden eyes shimmered, her throat tightened with emotion. No one has ever defended me like that," she whispered. He looked at her with quiet strength. "Get used to it," he said, "because I'm not leaving you alone." Liara clutched the pendant again, the gift that now felt heavier with meaning. Her smile returned, small but real. The shadows of jealousy had risen, but they had not broken her this time. For the first time she stood not as the lonely watcher, but as someone with a defender, and deep inside she knew this was only the beginning. The plaza had grown quieter after the boys retreated, but the weight of their words lingered. Liara still felt the burn of every stare, every whisper. But this time, something was different. She was not standing alone. Daniel walked beside her, steady and calm. His presence was like a shield. His steps told the crowd that he would not allow their cruelty to pass unanswered. Liara touched the pendant at her chest. Her heart still trembled. "You shouldn't have spoken like that," she whispered. "Now everyone will notice you too. They'll hate you as much as they hate me." Daniel glanced at her, his expression unshaken. "Then let them. Their opinion doesn't matter to me." She stared at him in disbelief. "How can you say that so easily?" "I've lived 22 years under those stairs. I feel them like knives every day." Daniel stopped walking. He turned fully toward her. His eyes met hers with quiet strength. "Because I learned a long time ago that people only have the power you give them. If you stop letting their stares control you, they lose, not you." Her golden eyes shimmered. The words felt impossible to her. Yet his voice carried such certainty. She wanted to believe him. Before she could answer, a commotion erupted on the far side of the plaza. The same alien boys had returned, this time not alone. They had brought older youths, stronger, sharper, carrying the arrogance of numbers. The crowd shifted, whispers rising again. A circle began to form, trapping Liara and Daniel in the center. Liara's chest tightened, panic surging. "Daniel," she whispered urgently, "we should go. They'll hurt you. They'll—" Daniel placed a hand gently but firmly on her shoulder, stopping her words. "No, Liara," he said softly. "If we run, they win. If we stand, they learn." Her breath shook. She wanted to argue, but his hand on her shoulder was steady, grounding her. For the first time, she felt like maybe she could stand. The leader of the group, a tall alien with dark ridges along his jaw, stepped forward. His eyes narrowed at Daniel. "You're new here, human. You don't understand. That girl carries the mark. She is cursed. You dishonor yourself by standing with her." Daniel's jaw tightened. His voice rang out, calm but loud enough for all to hear. "The only curse I see is the cruelty of cowards." The crowd gasped. Some covered their mouths, shocked that a human dared to challenge their unspoken law. Liara's heart pounded. Her instinct screamed at her to shrink back, to hide. But Daniel stood tall, unflinching. His words cut through the noise like steel. The alien leader sneered. "You think your words make you strong? You stand with her, then you share her shame." He raised his hand, gesturing for his group to step closer. Liara grabbed Daniel's arm, her voice breaking. "Please, don't fight. They'll crush you, and I cannot watch another person suffer because of me." Daniel turned his head slightly, meeting her desperate eyes, his voice lowered, firm but gentle. "Liara, listen to me. You've been silent all your life. You've let them define you. But not today. Not while I'm here." Her breath hitched. His words lit something deep inside her. Something long buried. The aliens closed in, tension thick in the air. But Daniel didn't move back. Instead, he took a single step forward, planting himself between Liara and the group. His voice rang out, strong and clear. "If you want to reach her," he said, "you'll have to go through me first." The crowd erupted with shocked murmurs. No one had ever stood like this for Liara, not in public, not with such defiance. The alien leader hesitated. His pride demanded action, but the human's stance unsettled him. There was no fear in Daniel's eyes, only unshakable resolve. One of the youths snarled, "Why defend her? She is nothing." Daniel's answer was sharp as a blade. "She is not nothing. She is worth more than all of you who hide behind hatred." The word slammed into Liara's heart. Her knees weakened, her golden eyes filled with tears. Not of shame this time, but of fierce, rising strength. She stepped forward before she could stop herself. Her voice trembled but carried through the plaza. "I am not nothing." The crowd gasped again. Liara had never spoken back, never raised her voice. Her words echoed against the metal walls of the station. The alien leader's eyes widened, his jaw tightened with fury. "You dare!" But Daniel cut him off. "She dares because she finally remembers who she is. And if you're wise, you'll walk away." The air was heavy, the circle of onlookers leaned closer, waiting for the clash, waiting for blood. But the leader hesitated. The human's defiance and Liara's sudden courage cracked the power of their intimidation. Slowly, with a sharp hiss of frustration, he raised his hand, signaling his group to back away. The boys grumbled, glaring, but they obeyed. The leader spat on the ground, his voice cold. "This isn't over, human. You'll regret standing with her." Then he turned, pushing through the crowd. The circle broke apart, murmurs spreading like wildfire. For the first time, Liara wasn't just the cursed girl. She was the girl who had stood and spoken, and the human who stood with her had made. Everyone listened. Liara's chest heaved, her hands shook. She turned to Daniel, her voice unsteady. I don't understand. How did you do that? How did you make them stop?" Daniel gave her a small smile. "I didn't, you did. The moment you spoke, they lost their power." Her golden eyes shimmered, her lips trembled, and then, with tears sliding down her cheeks, she whispered, "Thank you for giving me the strength I thought I'd lost forever." Daniel's hand rested gently on her shoulder, steady and warm. "You didn't lose it, Liara. It was always there. You just needed someone to remind you." And in that moment, standing, together under the dim lights of the station, Liara realized something powerful. For the first time in her life, she was not watching from the edge. She was standing in the center, with someone beside her. The plaza slowly returned to its rhythm after the confrontation. Merchants reopened their stalls, music returned, and laughter rose again from children. Yet for Liara, the world was no longer the same. She stood beside Daniel, her heart still, racing from what had just happened. Her chest felt light and heavy at the same time. She had spoken, really spoken, for the first time in years, and the crowd had heard her. She touched the pendant at her chest, the metal warm against her skin. It reminded her of the moment Daniel had placed it around her neck. It reminded her of his words, strong and steady, that had cut through her fear. For so long, Liara had been only a shadow at the edge of laughter. But now, she felt herself step into the light. Daniel looked at her quietly, his eyes searching her face. "How do you feel?" he asked softly. Liara's lips trembled. She struggled for words. Her whole life had been silence, whispers, shame. To speak of feelings was something she had never been allowed. "I feel," she began, then paused. She touched her chest again, where the pendant rested. "I feel alive." Daniel's lips curved into a small smile. "Good. That's how it should be." The evening light of the station glowed around them, casting long shadows across the plaza. For once, Liara did not shrink into those shadows. She stood taller, straighter, her golden eyes bright despite the tears that still clung to them. But not everyone celebrated her small victory. The alien youths who had retreated earlier lingered at the edges of the plaza, their eyes cold with jealousy. Their whispers were sharp, carrying the promise of more trouble. Yet even their presence felt different now, less powerful, less certain. Liara noticed them, but instead of turning away, she lifted her chin. Daniel's words echoed inside her. "They only have the power you give them." For the first time, she refused to give them that power. The crowd thinned as families left one by one, stalls closed, the plaza grew quieter until only a few remained. Daniel and Liara sat by the fountain, the soft hum of water filling the silence. Daniel pulled something else from his bag, a small wooden carving, rough but carefully shaped. It was a tiny figure of a bird with wings spread wide. Liara blinked, surprised. "Another gift?" Daniel chuckled. "Not really. Just something I carve when I have long travels. I carry them for luck." He turned it in his fingers before handing it to her. "And now, I think you need it more than me." Liara took it gently, her fingers brushing the smooth wood. Her heart ached with gratitude. "Why do you keep giving me things?" she whispered. "Why me?" Daniel leaned back, his gaze lifting toward the artificial sky of the station. "Because sometimes the smallest kindness can save someone's life, and sometimes it can save their smile." He glanced at her. "And I think your smile deserves saving." Liara's throat tightened, his words wrapped around her heart like light. She looked down at the little bird, then at the pendant, and finally at him. For so long she had believed her life was doomed to loneliness, but this human had shattered that belief piece by piece. Her lips trembled, and then, slowly, her face softened. For the first time in years, Liara's smile bloomed, real, full, unbroken. It lit her golden eyes, reaching places inside her that had been locked in darkness for too long. Daniel watched, quietly, his chest warmed at the sight. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The smile itself was the answer. A few passers-by noticed too. Their whispers changed. This time they did not say cursed. This time they said, she smiled. Liara heard them, and instead of shrinking, her smile widened. It was fragile, yes, but it was no longer hidden. She turned to Daniel, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. You gave me something I thought I would never have again. And, what's that? Daniel asked. A reason to smile, she whispered, touching the pendant. A reason to stand. She looked at the small wooden bird in her hand. And maybe, a reason to hope. The fountain glowed faintly behind them. The hum of the station felt softer, kinder. Daniel nodded slowly, his eyes meeting hers. Then my journey here was worth it. The silence that followed was not heavy. It was peaceful, filled with unspoken promise. For Liara, the lonely watcher of the plaza, life had changed forever. She would still carry the mark on her skin. She would still face stares and whispers, but she no longer carried them alone. The human had given her more than food, more than gifts, more than defense. He had given her the strength to see herself, to speak, to stand, and to smile. And for the first time in her 22 years, Liara believed that tomorrow might hold something more than silence. As they rose to leave, Daniel glanced at her and said lightly, So, will you keep watching from the edge, or will you play next time? Liara's smile widened, her golden eyes shining. Next time, I'll play. And together, they walked out of the plaza, the mark of shame still on her skin. But her smile, bright, real, and alive, burned brighter than any shadow.